Hear angel trumpets and devil trombones. You are invited.
Hello, cinephiles. Welcome to Making Film, where we take an in-depth look at how cinema's greatest artists made their films. My name is Tyler, and today we are taking a look at the screenwriting of A Clockwork Orange.
Shut your filthy hole, you scum!
In this video, we'll take a look at Kubrick's approach to story. Kubrick had been given Burgess's novel by the screenwriter of Dr. Strangelove, Terry Southern, while Kubrick was working on 2001, but it took him a while to start reading it. Kubrick said, "Because of the pressures that were on me at that time, it joined the certain number of books that one has sitting on the shelf, waiting to be read. One evening, I picked it up. By the end of part 1, it seemed obvious that it might make a great film. By the end of part 2, I was very excited about it. For the next 2 or 3 days, I did little else but think about it." He also remarked that, quote, "I started to read the book and finished it in one sitting. As soon as I finished it, I immediately reread it." Kubrick had said that it usually takes him about a year to become obsessed with an idea to the point that he really knows what he wants to do with it. But here, it was nearly immediate. Kubrick knew it would make a good movie before he even finished reading the book, saying, "The story was of a size and density that it could be adapted to the screen without oversimplifying it. The book itself could serve as a blueprint for the film." Kubrick had previously collaborated with others on the screenplays for his films, most recently writing the screenplay for 2001 alongside Arthur C. Clarke, writing a novelization of the story. But with A Clockwork Orange, he thought that it could be translated to a film without many changes necessary. Kubrick decided to write the screenplay himself without working with the book's author, Anthony Burgess. Burgess and Kubrick spoke briefly over the phone while Burgess was in London, but that was the extent of their interaction during the screenwriting process. I'll speak more on this later. According to Burgess, the rights to adapt the novel for the screen had been sold, quote, "for a few $100s to a small production company headed by a Californian lawyer." In 1962, when the book was published, the production code was still in effect, and audiences weren't yet interested in such a transgressive narrative, so the project was shelved. The rights were then sold to Warner Brothers for a large amount of money, which Burgess saw none of. Burgess had previously written a screenplay for the film, which Kubrick rejected, and Terry Southern, remember the screenwriter for Dr. Strangelove, had also taken out an option and wrote a version of the script with Michael Cooper before Kubrick got involved. Southern bought a 6-month option on the book for $1,000 against a purchase price of $10,000. He sent his script to several producers, including David Putnam. They sent the script to the British film censor to see if it would be acceptable to make a movie out of. They got the script back unopened, with a note saying, "I know the book and there's no point in reading the script because it involves youthful defiance of authority, and we're not doing that."
I'm sorry, Alex. This is for your own good. You'll have to bear with us for a while.
When Kubrick did get involved, Southern didn't have the rights anymore because he was unable to pay the next $1,000 fee. The option was picked up by Southern's lawyer, Cy Litvinoff, and a friend named Max Robb. Kubrick signed a production deal with Warner Brothers and, quote, "bought the rights for $200,000 and a 50% share in all profits." Litvinoff and Robb received the $200,000 and 5% of the profits, which earned them about $1.2 million. This was Kubrick's first time working with Warner Brothers, and he would continue with the studio for the rest of his career. Warner Brothers was very artist-friendly during this time, and this is why something like A Clockwork Orange was able to be made. When the novel A Clockwork Orange was first published in 1962, there wasn't really much controversy surrounding it, despite the story containing much brutality and sexual violence, which Burgess had some first-hand experience with. His wife had been raped by US deserters in London during World War II. She was pregnant at the time and was beaten to the point that they lost the baby. She attempted suicide and Burgess became an alcoholic. In the book, the writer is Burgess himself, and he is writing A Clockwork Orange, which Alex reads excerpts of.
He told me, Burgess, he told me that he got the idea for this film from being in Moscow in the early 60s, being in a coffee shop, in a coffee bar. And he said, and the windows are all steamed up. And he was sitting by the window talking to one of his compatriots or whatever. And these thugs, hooligans, were pressed their faces up to the window, looking in, because he was obviously a foreigner, was dressed differently, and they could tell that a mile away. And they were pressed, and it was very threatening, he said.
These hoodlums were also apparently wearing strange fetishistic outfits that Burgess also got inspiration from. The novel was written pretty quickly during a period in which Burgess had learned that he had a fatal brain tumor and had less than a year to live. It was one of 5 novels he wrote very quickly, although he went on to live another 25 years. Burgess was the book reviewer for the Yorkshire Post in England. He had the other 4 books come out under pseudonym so that it didn't look like the author was coming out with several books in one year. Despite many considering it linked to 2001 as a futuristic film, Burgess had a different interpretation.
It is not the future, really. It can be the future if you will. It's just a period of time which is at a slant to real time.
You could say that this links A Clockwork Orange more with Dr. Strangelove as a satire of the present day, where the absurdity of our normal world and experience is heightened to an extreme degree.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
In an interview, Kubrick said, "I always revert back to E.M. Forster's aspects of the novel, where he tells about the first caveman telling his friends a story as they sit around a fire. They either fell asleep, threw a rock at him, or listened. The problem obviously is you've got to make people pay attention long enough to get across what you've got to say. Most films don't have any purpose other than to mechanically figure out what people want and to construct some sort of artificial form of entertainment for them. Even when this is the sole purpose, it rarely succeeds." We can see this with many large franchise movies whose sole purpose seems to be to sell products. The problem is, how do you make something that is both entertaining and has a purpose beyond ticket sales? Kubrick addressed this problem in a separate interview. He said, "Most directors never successfully resolve the dilemma of wanting to be artists and needing to be popular. A distressing aspect of intellectual and artistic growth is that it principally means outgrowing other people. There are progressively fewer people to share one's ideas, and who understand, without oversimplification, what one is trying to communicate." The thing that separates Kubrick from other filmmakers for me is that Kubrick manages to layer meaning underneath simple and accessible stories, so you can appreciate the story on a superficial level and also appreciate the depth that is there if you go looking for it. I think this is why Kubrick's films seem to change as you get older. Watching this film now in my 30s was much different than how I saw it when I was 16. I think that you really need ambiguity for this to work. If the film asks a question that it does not necessarily answer, then your answer to the question as a viewer might change the more you watch it. Someone said that a director like Ingmar Bergman doesn't have this accessibility. You either get it or you don't. But with Kubrick, if you don't get it, you still get an immensely entertaining story. Kubrick explained how this works in an interview. He said, "The emotions of people are far more similar than their intellects. The common bond is their subconscious emotional reaction. Watching a film is like having a daydream. It operates on portions of your mind that are only reached by dreams or dramas, and there you can explore things without any responsibility of conscious ego or conscience. A child can understand that a violent act is being committed on someone who commits violent acts themselves, and they can have an emotional reaction to this even if they don't understand the societal implications. Satire also seems to be a great way to straddle entertainment with some kind of intellectual purpose. You can hold a funhouse mirror up to society and show how ridiculous some serious things are." The novel did a great job with this, and if the novel was entertaining, it shouldn't be too hard to make the movie entertaining. Kubrick spoke about this when asked about choosing stories to adapt. He said, "Should the book finally be what I want, it is very important for me to retain, during the subsequent phases of making the film, my impressions of the first reading. After you've been working on a film, perhaps for more than a year, everything about it becomes so familiar that you're in danger of not seeing the forest for the trees. That's why it's so important to be able to use this first impression as the criterion for making decisions about the story much later on. Whoever the director may be, and however perceptively he has filmed and edited his movie, he can never have the same experience that the audience has when it sees the film for the first time. The director's first time is the first reading of the story, and the impressions and excitement of this event have to last through to the final work on the movie. Fortunately, I've never chosen a story where the excitement hasn't gone the distance. It would be a terrible thing if it didn't. It was important for Kubrick to maintain that sense of absurdity while making the movie, so that he could keep it balanced between too realistic and too over the top. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned because next time we'll be talking about Kubrick's process while writing A Clockwork Orange. A Clockwork Orange was suggested by my patrons over on Patreon. If you like this stuff, please send $1 my way on Patreon and help me get around demonetization issues. And you'll get to watch the new episodes before everyone else. Click the link here now. Until next time, I'm Tyler. Thanks for watching.